What is the structural approach? The structural approach views language as a system of grammatical structures that should be taught in a logical sequence. Simpler structures are taught before the structures that depend on them. What is grammar translation method? The grammar translation method is a traditional method based on grammar rules, vocabulary, and translation. Its main focus is on reading and writing rather than oral communication. What is the role of the mother tongue in grammar translation? The mother tongue is the main medium of instruction and remains the reference system for learning the second language. Teachers use it to explain rules and translate words and sentences. How is grammar taught in the grammar translation method? Grammar is taught deductively through direct explanation of rules. Students then practice those rules through translation exercises. What are the main features of the grammar translation method? The sentence is the basic unit of learning. Accuracy is strongly emphasized and vocabulary is taught through bilingual list. Reading, writing, grammar, and translation receive most of the class time. What are the disadvantages of the grammar translation method? The method gives little attention to listening, speaking, creativity, and natural communication. It may also make language appear to be a collection of isolated words and can cause boredom. Why was the audiolingual method developed? The audiolingual method developed from the need for strong oral and listening skills during and after the Second World War. Its principles were later organized by Morton. What theory supports the audiolingual method? The method is closely connected with behaviorism and habit information. Language is learned through stimulus, response, repetition, and reinforcement. What are the main techniques of the audiolingual method? The main techniques are memorizing dialogues, imitative repetition, listening practice, and pronunciation drills. Students repeatedly hear and copy language patterns. What is the order of language skill in audiolingual method? Listening and oral production are taught before reading and writing. The method assumes that spoken language should provide the foundation for literacy skills. What is the role of mistakes and reinforcement? Mistakes are carefully avoided because they may form bad habits. Positive reinforcement is used to strengthen correct responses and good language habits. What are the weaknesses of audiolingual method? Repetition may limit creativity and spontaneity, and students may not use memorized pattern naturally. Audio-visual materials may also be mistaken for a complete teaching method rather than support tools. Why was the oral approach developed? The oral approach developed as a reaction to the direct method and aimed to provide a scientific and systematic way of teaching English. It emphasized vocabulary, sentence pattern, and organized curriculum development. How is vocabulary treated in the oral approach? Vocabulary is viewed as a foundation for reading ability. The approach recommends a core list of about 2,000 words for reading comprehension. How is grammar taught in the oral approach? Grammar is taught through useful sentence patterns such as subject, verb, object. Students learn these structures so that they can understand and use the language. What are the three curriculum elements of the oral approach? The three elements are selection, gradation, and presentation. They involve choosing content, arranging it in order, and teaching it effectively. What does PPP stand for? PPP stands for presentation, practice, and perform. The teacher presents the material, students practice it safely, and then they perform to demonstrate learning. What is directed practice? Directed practice is focused language use designed to improve performance at a higher level. It should be purposeful, reflective, methodical, and based on identified learning needs. Why was the direct method developed? The direct method was developed because teachers were dissatisfied with the grammar translation method. It aimed to teach language through active use, demonstration, and communication. What is the basic principle of the direct method? The target language is used exclusively and translation is avoided. Students learn to think and communicate directly in the language they are studying. How is vocabulary taught in the direct method? Concrete vocabulary is taught through objects, picture, mime, and a demonstration. Abstract vocabulary is taught through association of ideas, which skills are emphasized in the direct method. The method mainly emphasizes speaking, listening, oral practice, and correct pronunciation. Reading, writing, and grammar are introduced after basic oral language. What are the disadvantages of the direct method? The method assumes that a second language can be learned in the same way as a first language, which is not always practical. Its success also depends heavily on a highly fluent and skilled teacher. What is the series method? The series method was developed by Francois Goin and uses connected sentences describing a sequence of actions. Its simplicity makes the sentences easy to understand and memorize. What is the main goal of communicative language teaching? The main goal of communicative language teaching is to develop communicative competence. Students learn to use language meaningfully in different real life contexts. What are the key principles of communicative language teaching? Language should be used for actual communication. Students should express ideas and errors should be accepted as part of development. Fluency is generally given more importance than perfect accuracy. Why is CLT called a centered approach? Students have the central role and actively use language in meaningful activities. The teacher talks less and works as a mediator, manager, motivator, and advisor. What are the four communicative competencies? The four competencies are discursive, grammatical, social-linguistic, and strategic competence. They relate to fluency, accuracy, social appropriateness, and effective communication strategies. What is the silent way? The silent way encourages the teacher to remain as silent as possible while learners speak and discover language. Physical objects and problem solving are used to support learning. What is community language learning? Community language learning emphasizes safety, trust, and the relationship between teacher and learner. It often uses the mother tongue for translation and emotional support. What is Suggestopedia? Suggestopedia is a method developed by Georgi Lozano and derived from suggestology. It uses positive suggestion, relaxation, music, and a comfortable environment to increase receptiveness to learning. What is the role of the learning environment in Suggestopedia? The classroom should be bright, cheerful, comfortable, and relaxing with suitable furniture and music. These conditions are intended to make learners alert, confident, and receptive. What is the natural approach? The natural approach assumes that language develops naturally through meaningful exposure and suitable conditions. It focuses on meaning, comprehensible input, low anxiety, and gradual language growth. What is total physical response? Total physical response is a method developed by James Asher that coordinates speech with physical action. Learners listen to commands and respond physically before they are expected to speak. What are the limitations of total physical response? Total physical response, TPR, is most suitable for beginners and young learners, and some students may feel uncomfortable with physical activities. It cannot teach every language skill and may become repetitive if overused. What is TPRs? Teaching a proficiency through reading and storytelling is an input-based approach and that teaches vocabulary through comprehensible, personalized, and contextualized language. It uses stories, reading, gesture, and pictures, props, and meaningful chunks rather than isolated word lists. What are teaching aids? Teaching aids are additional devices or sensory materials that help teachers explain, connect, and clarify concepts. They make teaching more effective and learning more meaningful. Why are teaching aids called motivators? Teaching aids increase students' interest, enthusiasm, and attention. Learners participate more actively when lessons include suitable audiovisual material. How do teaching aids provide experience? When direct first-hand experience is not possible, teaching aids provide useful substituted experiences. They help a student understand object, event, and ideas that are difficult to observe directly. How do teaching aids reduce verbalism? Teaching aids replace excessive verbal explanation with clear visual and sensory experiences. They make concepts more accurate, concrete, and understandable. How do teaching aids save time and energy? Many different concepts can be explained quickly through appropriate aids. This saves the time and effort of both teachers and students. How do teaching aids support freedom and variety? Teaching aids move lesson beyond routine chalk and talk teaching and allow students to observe, discuss, move, and comment. Students work because they are interested rather than because they are forced. What are the five principles for using audio visual aids? The five principles are preparation, selection, presentation, response, and physical control. Together, they ensure that aids are useful, safe, and effective. What is the principle of preparation? The principle of preparation encourages teacher to use locally available material and make aids that are easy to prepare and use. The aid should be ready before the lesson begins. What is the principle of selection? The principle of selection requires an aid to match the lesson objectives and learner characteristics. It should suit the student's age, grade, ability, experience, and local needs. What is the principle of proper presentation? The teacher should understand the practice using the aid before presenting it. The aid must be handled safely and displayed clearly so that every student can see it. What is the principle of response? The principle of response requires students to react actively to the audiovisual stimulus. Active responses help them gain the maximum learning benefit. What qualities should a good teaching aid have? A good aid should be current, meaningful, accurate, realistic, simple, portable, motivating, inexpensive, and easy to obtain. It should also be large enough to be seen and integrated with the lesson. What is testing? Testing is a structured method of measuring a person's ability, knowledge, skill, or performance in a particular area. A test normally contains questions or tasks with expected correct responses. What is an aptitude test? A language aptitude test measures a person's capacity to learn new language skills. It does not merely test knowledge of one particular taught course. What is a diagnostic test? A diagnostic test is usually given at the beginning of a course to identify strengths and weaknesses. Its results help teacher plan lessons and learners identify areas for improvement. What is placement test? A placement test is used before a course to place learner in classes according to their ability level. It helps institutions decide whether a learner needs basic or advanced instruction. What is the difference between achievement and proficiency test? An achievement test measures what students have learned from a course or unit, while a proficiency test measures the practical ability to use language regardless of a specific course. What are the main characteristics of a good test? A good test should have validity, reliability, and usability. It should measure the intended skill, produce consistent results, and be practical to administer and use. What is the purpose of behavior management? The purpose of behavior management is to encourage behavior that supports learning. It helps create a safe, positive, and organized classroom environment. How does student behavior affect learning? Disruptive behavior wastes teaching time and distracts other students. When behavior meets expectation, more classroom time can be used for effective learning. What are the teacher's goals in behavior management? The teacher aims to maintain safety, respect, organization, and freedom from distraction. Good management also increases the time available for interaction with the lesson. How do students benefit from positive behavior management? Students practice social skill, cooperation, procedures, and appropriate behavior in different situations. They also gain positive experiences with teachers and classmates. How should a teacher handle inattentive or non-participating students? The teacher should use questions, interesting tasks, small groups, and achievable activities to involve those students. Successful participation can gradually rebuild attention and confidence. What is the purpose of a one-to-one discussion with a difficult student? A private discussion or a one-to-one discussion should identify and remove barriers to learning without damaging the student's self-esteem. The teacher should give the student good reason to change rather than simply insult or threaten them. What is the focusing technique? The focusing technique requires the teacher to gain the full attention of the class before starting the lesson. The teacher waits quietly until everyone is settled and then begins in a calm voice. What is direct instruction as a discipline technique? Direct instruction means telling a student exactly what will be taught and what they will do during the lesson. Clear tasks and time limits reduce confusion and off-task behavior. What is monitoring? Monitoring requires the teacher to move around the classroom and check students' work frequently. Early observation helps the teacher detect and correct problems before they become serious. How does modeling improve discipline? Students often copy the behavior they observe in their teacher. A calm, respectful, punctual, and organized teacher provides a strong model for appropriate behavior. What is assertive discipline? Assertive discipline is based on clear expectations, firm communication, and consistent enforcement of rules. The teacher focuses on the desired behavior without attacking the student's personality. What is positive discipline? Positive discipline emphasizes desired behavior, clear expectations, praise, and encouragement. It aims to develop self control and responsibility rather than relying on punishment. इसके साथ ही EDUA 516 के फाइनल टर्म के हवाले से तमाम इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन आंसर्स मैंने आपके साथ यहाँ शेयर किए हैं। मुझे उम्मीद है कि ये वीडियोस आपके लिए बहुत यूजफुल रहेंगी। अगर आपका कुछ सवाल हो इस वीडियो के हवाले से या आप कोई फीडबैक देना चाहें तो जरूर मुझे कमेंट सेक्शन में बताइएगा। चैनल पर नए हैं तो सब्सक्राइब करना हरगिज ना भूलिएगा ताकि तमाम इंपॉर्टेंट वीडियोस और अपडेट्स आप तक इसी तरह पहुंचती रहें। मेरे इन वीडियोस को आप लाजमी वर्चुअल यूनिवर्सिटी के डिफरेंट प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे शेयर कीजिएगा ताकि आपकी तरह दूसरे स्टूडेंट भी अपने फाइनल टर्म की अच्छी प्रिपरेशन कर सकें। मैं इंशाल्लाह ताला अपनी नेक्स्ट वीडियो के साथ जल्द हाजिर होंगी। तब तक आप सब अपना बहुत ख्याल रखिएगा। अल्लाह हाफिज।